Hello, and welcome to part 2 of my 4 Delica, sort of, 4 steel comparison. So today I am going to cut cardboard. Previously in part 1 I tested the factory edges on these knives on rope and soda box cardboard. Now I'm going to be cutting just regular corrugated, I think is the word, like Amazon type moving box, basically moving box cardboard. So I have sharpened all of these knives on a Worksharp Precision Adjust Professional at 17 degrees. Some of these from the factory seemed like they were sharpened at different angles. Some of them were, for example, this one had a really wide bevel. I think it was pretty thin on one side, so 17 degrees could put kind of a double bevel on this one. And the other side was actually quite narrow, so I think this one was kind of uneven from the factory, but so they're all 17 degrees. It's just what I did. Seemed easier than trying to figure out some way to measure what they were at and do them at 16 or whatever, if one of them was at 16. And like I said, this one seemed like it was unevenly ground anyway. So I've sharpened them on the Worksharp Precision Adjust Professional as best as I can. I have best readings, which I will provide momentarily. Let me just show how these edges are now on catalog paper. 8CR. VG10. S30V. K390. All of these knives are very, very sharp. $105. $101. $82. $100. This is the type of cardboard I'm going to be cutting. I just bought these boxes from Walmart. They're just regular moving boxes. These should be as consistent as I can get. Lots and lots and lots of people are doing cardboard edge retention comparison testing. Many of them are much, much more dialed in and more scientific than I am. So take what's about to happen with a grain of salt. This is not something that is going to be very scientific, except that these knives are all the same make or similar. So the steel difference is relevant here. I'm going to just be making cuts along these flaps, along all sides, and then I'll cut down the center. I'll count how many cuts these make. I'm going to be checking the edge as I go for sharpness. I'll probably stop when these knives fail to be able to cut this notebook paper. I'm not using catalog paper for this because I think catalog paper is really good for measuring overall sharpness. But I think this kind of notebook paper is actually better at measuring dullness. So we've just finished the third cycle. This is my third paper check, by the way. I've done a paper check after each cycle. I think VG10's out. There's a problem here. So he's done with this part of the test. Still perfectly fine. Still perfectly. So I'm going to continue this, and VG10 is going to be out. I'm going to do 2 readings on him. I'm going to try to get a reading up here at the tip, just because that's where it was failing. So we're going to continue with these remaining knives until they fail to cut the paper. I've done 7 cycles since VG10 got out. It's fine. No problem. S30. Fine. No problem. K390. Fine. No problem. Looks like we might be here a while. Okay, so I used a different knife to cut these tassels off. I was going to use these Delicas to do that because I really like it, but since VG10 wasn't going to get a play, I didn't do it. I used a different knife for that. So now with the remaining knives, not VG10 because it's still out, I'm just going to cut cardboard down this way now and see what happens. this point, I took a short break for a little bit. So I have just finished cutting the flaps off the top and bottom of the third box. Have not done the center part yet. I want to do a quick just take on where these edges are at. They all just passed the paper test, so they're still in the running. I just want to get a feel for how these are at. I don't feel any major damage on these yet. 8CR still feels quite grabby to my finger pads this way. Still feels slightly dangerous to me this way. Obviously, none of these knives are still scraping on me. No major burrs here. It was about the same as 8CR. I feel about the same. K390. K390 feels like it still has some teeth going this way. K390 still feels noticeably more dangerous with my finger going this way lengthwise. And it feels slightly more grabby on my finger pads laterally. So K390 to my fingers still feels slightly sharper and slightly more toothy. You might notice the addition of a glove here. My hand was getting sore. So we just cut down the center portion of box number 3. All the flaps of all 4 boxes have been cut off. I just have one center portion of box 4 remaining, but I want to show where we are. 8CR. It's getting pretty rough. I'll come back to him in a minute. S30V. Seems about the same. K390. So all of these knives are about the same. It's kind of weird. Let's try this again. 8CR. Trying to cut with just the tip so we can see. That's kind of it's definitely rough enough. I'm going to stop him. He's done. S30V.
looks exactly the same to me as the 8CR. They look exactly the same. K390. I'm gonna say K390 is obviously slightly sharper. It's definitely rough. So I'm going to say these two knives are out at the same time. K390 is right behind them, but I would run him through one more cycle. So I'm gonna make a note of that, and then I'm gonna let him cut some of that center part. Okay, so this K390 knife just cut down the entire center portion of that other box all by itself, which was 40 plus 40 plus 49, 129 cuts. Not bad. See where it's at. I just cleaned it off. It was getting actually quite warm. Did create a tear. That's usually a stopping point for me. Let's see what it does now. Yeah. So the stopping point for K390. It did one whole center box more than the other ones. Amazing result from these guys, and unfortunately I think Spyderco gave us a bad edge with this guy, so I think it was just too thin and uneven. It's really sad he didn't get to play better. This is the post-cutting best test results. 8CR. .288 S30V. .310 K390. .306. VG10 was already tested at the point when it stopped, and it best tested at 185 in the middle and 175 at the tip. So let's talk about these results. Let's look first at the amount of cardboard these things cut. Obviously VG10 petered out pretty quickly with just a few feet. It did 3 cycles, totaling 31.6 feet. S30V and 8CR13 did the exact same at 478.5 feet of cardboard, and K390 just did a few cycles past that, basically 10.75 more feet at 489. So S30V, 8CR13, and K390 really all ended up pretty much in the same area. I don't know what the margin of error for this kind of test would be, but they seem like they're all pretty much the same to me. So let's talk about the best results. Looking at that first column, that's what they started out at, 101, then 105 and 100 are all pretty much the same. The S30V was slightly sharper than the other knives. That middle column is when I checked them after VG10 failed. So after 3 cycles, VG10 failed, and I tested the knives all on the best tester, and so those results are from that. The VG10 got 2 results because I tested it at the tip and at the middle. So again, those numbers are all pretty similar. So the knives all seem to have similar amounts of sharpness at the time of testing after 3 cycles when VG10 failed. Then the last number is what they ended at, 310, 288, and 306. Those are all pretty close. So all in all, if we take VG10 out, because for some reason it petered out really early on, the other steels all performed very similarly. It's actually very, very surprising to me. So this cardboard test was actually really, really interesting for me. I am very, very surprised how evenly these 3 knives ended up. They all finished pretty much in the same time, with this doing just a few more cycles beyond, which makes sense. It should by far have the most edge retention. So this, for all practical purposes, should get twice as much as the 8CR did, but that's what happened. So I don't know why the VG10 petered out so early. I am sad that we couldn't have got a better result with it, but that's what happened. So I'm not good with math or geometry or pretty much anything that's useful at all in any way, but I think what ended up happening on my resharpening of that is I made a higher angle here at 17 degrees. So I have basically added another line here to make this double bevel line, and then this is just a regular single bevel where all of this would have got shaved off. And so I think my point would look something more like this inner point. I don't know what having the double bevel would do. My point should have been still really, really straight at 17 degrees on both sides, because that's what Worksharp was telling me that it was, if that thing is accurate. I'm fairly certain I removed the burr as stably or evenly as I could, just like I did on the other knives. But I don't know if this is correct. I have no idea. If you guys have any ideas, you might be able to explain it, but it probably doesn't matter. Just know the edge on this thing was kind of weird, and that's what it did. In conclusion, this was a really fun and interesting test. I am really, really interested that all 3 of these knives ended so similarly. That's very, very interesting to me. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts, questions, or concerns. I really appreciate all your input. And as always, thank you so much for watching.